accountability. We go over our preseason predictions. And of course, the disappointment on the Yankees and the Mets lead us to the Boone rant, to the Mets front office rant. All next, Diamond Diehards is on. Joe Rizzo here, bringing you baseball along with the dog, Jeff Healy. And yeah, it's about accountability. You know, it's not something that you get in the media these days, but I don't know if we're the media. I'm not really sure what we are, but we're definitely going to be accountable. We're good. We went back over, we actually did the research. We listened to the episode that we did before the start of the season, not the one with the over-unders, which actually was pretty good. We could have gone over that one too, but the one where we made preseason predictions about what we thought was going to happen in baseball this year. We made some wickedly awesome revelations, and some other ones sucked. But nonetheless, the dog and I will kick it off here. If you like what you see or you like what you hear, hit the subscribe button and the alerts button. And every time we come on for Diamond Diehards or we upload a new episode or any kind of content, you will know about it and you'll get an alert. We need you to spread the word. We're on these levels, right? We've been kind of stuck at some of these levels for a long time. So if you like what you see, we really do need that support. It does mean a lot. And if you are on the Facebook group now, you are catching this live, which is where we usually do our live streams when we do them. And we haven't done one here in a little while because when we do guest shows like the last one where we had Dr. Stacy Pokovits talking about Aaron Rodgers's Achilles tear and Aaron Judge's mangled toe, then, you know, that's something that we don't necessarily do as a live stream. But when it's the dog and I or the rookie Aaron Mulligan with us, that's pretty much when we'll do these live stream kind of things. Dog, I feel like it wasn't like time travel level, but I do feel like we got a lot of predictions right. And so not just like that we got some right, but we got ones that like nobody else was talking about, like none.
As usual, I think our commentary is actually better than our actual picks. So the analysis is not bad. Our picks are okay, not too bad on that. I gotta say, I'm happy to be back. After Riz put me on revocable waivers with Dr. Stacy, I thought this is it. But as usual, nobody picked me up. So here I am, man. I'm back again. No one grabbed me for the stretch run. So yeah, so it was a fun one. It was a lot of fun go back and listening back on that. And you know, that's the way that best organizations do it, actually. Right? You go back and you figure out and you listen to what you picked and why you picked it and stuff like that. And where you made your hits, where you had your misses. So this should be a fun one.
Yeah, it's like hard to do that sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
Like because you don't know what you're gonna really get when you go back. But I was pretty happy with some of the stuff that that we did. So
yeah, the risers and stuff like that. I think we're really solid on it. I think we you know, for most of the stuff, I think we identified sort of like the key factors and so forth, and didn't always call which way it was going to go or whatnot. But yeah, I think it was pretty good. So looking forward to it.
yeah, the parts that we got wrong. So, you know, the first main thing, I mean, both of us just got completely wrong the Yankees and the Mets. So where does that put us, dog? Does that make us just like everybody else?
Yeah, I mean the Mets was the biggest miss. I mean, and that's, you know, that's pretty common across pretty much everyone had the Mets as, you know, certainly a playoff team. And then you could argue, you know, are they going to be top or are they going to be a little bit behind Atlanta, kind of like they were last year? Yeah, and I don't think anyone really saw the implosion offensively. Every facet of the game regressed on that. Maybe even Bucks managing, right? Guy was manager of the year, and people were throwing stones at that. I think mostly unfairly, but you know, there's a little bit of truth there too. So that was a toughie, and then the Yankees. I mean, with the Judge injury, you know, just hanging on, and then some of the starting pitching not quite being able to be enough. The great bullpen. I mean, I like the reasons why, and that was sort of thing like that was pretty good. I mean, I think the reasons why we thought the Yankees are going to be really good, but right there. just some other factors were simply too great. Let's say the Mets, I mean, they just, everybody hit 40 points below their average, and that it was kind of the key. And then some of the pitch, the pitching starting pitching being much weaker, and that bullpen being trashed by like the middle of May. So that proved to be too much.
Yeah, it was somewhat beyond their control, but somewhat in their control, maybe you could argue, right?
Yeah, I mean, we did identify, obviously the Diaz injury, giving different chances and stuff like that. It's interesting listening back and sort of saying like how, and I agreed at the time that it'd be easier for the Mets to like add some bullpen support down the stretch and have some moves to make it that and so forth. And then obviously having to kind of go the other way on that. So a little bit of a what if, right? As you start to get some of the starting pitching back, and they actually start to and turn it on a little bit in August, if they just had enough horses left to kind of do it, could they at least gotten to 500 and get a good feeling about the year, threatening for a little bit, and then just cave down towards the end. So yeah, toughy.
When you break it all down, it's, and you look at the Mets demise, what was the most important thing? Did we predict it in any way, shape, or form based on our notes that we have here? I mean, I sort of said, so what I said was their problems really are potentially in the playoffs. I said, I thought their regular season, they'd be fine, but the problems, they would have real problems potentially in the playoffs because they have these old pitchers, and Scherzer has already was, not that he was breaking down toward the end of seasons, but he would be limited and then not the same guy in the playoffs that you would expect. And that, had been a trend for a few years. The wheels came off a lot earlier.
Yeah. And that really was the key with the terrible start and so forth, that it took Verlander a while to get going, and you had Quintana out, which I did note, that was sort of a stealthy big injury for him that would have really helped solidify that rotation and lengthen it out until Verlander got up to to really starting to crank, which he finally started to do kind of going into the trading deadline. And thanks for that, for getting some good stuff back, Justin. So appreciate the effort. Scherzer was kind of that the whole year, and he's sort of continuing to get off to a good start with Rangers and kind of gave it back. So yeah, I mean, I think selling at Scherzer, I think was certainly the right move. And Verlander was tough. I was worried about what it would say about them in 24. But the haul they got it, pretty high level guys that you're probably at 24, but you probably see them in 25. Maybe arguably late 24.
I don't know. You kind of want to see them in 25, which means 24 went a lot better. If you see them in 20, if you see them in 24, that might not be good news.
Fair point on that one. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I think, I think, and honestly, I think the hitting was actually the kind of bigger surprise to me. I mean, you had good years great year from Lindor, good year from Alonso, average down, but still the 46 homers. McNeil, huge. I mean, Nimmo was solid, right? So we were kind of hoping that one coming off on there. Loss of Marte was huge and never really recovered from it. And McNeil was just shockingly. I mean, for a guy who's such a consistent hitter, either giving you power or average, not really giving you much of either one. That was huge, and I think between him and Marte, that really sort of makes that lineup click. And when they weren't there, it was just too much to overcome. And like I said, just everybody underachieved.
Okay, we both. Well, I definitely thought the Phillies were going to be a little underestimated. They sort of ended up where I thought they would, but not with as many wins. You did have the Braves winning the division. I had the Phillies winning the division, but you had the Mets second, and I had the Mets second as well, and the Braves third, but making the playoffs. So we did pretty well.
I had the Phillies around like 90 wins or so. So
yeah, you did. You
might
end up. Yeah,
So,
after,
right,
in a
right there.
couple of days time here, you might end up exact on that. Let's see. Riz says Phillies have been underestimated. Riz worries about the Mets in the playoffs because Father Time is undefeated and that they'll have to figure out how to overcome the loss of Edwin Diaz. Phillies, Mets, Atlanta for Riz, and all three clear 90 wins and make the playoffs. Miami improves. Washington improves. That was both of us. Dog says Diaz injury knocks the Mets off the top perch. So you nailed that at least. Goes with Braves based on lineup and more pitching depth. Phillies into the low 90s. So Dog, you did better than I did, I would say, on the NL East. AL East. All right, I'm giving a Dog. I got to give my wow moment. This is my quote. Riz, I feel like the Orioles are ready to pass the Rays.
That was a bold statement.
That was.
And
Now,
you
to
nailed
be
it.
fair, I did say the red flag was that the Orioles over under was 76.5. It's like, that's such a red flag. Like they were over that last year and they're only getting better. So I thought that was like a red flag, but that still, it didn't stop me from pushing through. I have to give the caveat though. I did not have them winning the division. So I feel stupid. Like, I'm like, why didn't I just go all in? Like, I knew you can even hear it in my voice. I'm like, this team is like being way, way, way underestimated. But it didn't go as far as that because I had the Yankees edging the Jays to win the division. But I did say the Orioles and the Rays would be right there in playoff contention. You had the whole AL East being over 500, which you'll come very, very close to, but the Red Sox will fall just short. But they might still hit their over under, which I think was like 77.5. So as we do this, I think they're at 76 wins. They'd have to win 2 out of 3 over the weekend to get that. So as for, I did say one thing that I thought was good. The Yanks will have to find themselves 12 to 14 games out at the All-Star break to not be in contention for the division. And that actually happened. So I can't say I was expecting that to happen. I don't know if they were that far back. They might have been 9 back at the All-Star break. We'd have to double check it, or somebody in the comments like Mike Sarah or Jared Milani if he's there. Somebody might go and look that up for us.
Yeah, that sounds about right. 'Cause remember at the deadline we were sort of saying like people were disappointed the Yankees didn't go for an extra piece, and we were sort of like it was a tough call at the time, right? But,
yeah, I think they
actually
did
made
sort
the
of
wrong way, of course.
they did sort of pick it up after the All-Star break. So they
Yeah.
might have
And
like,
I think they were kind of getting a little better, just kind of coming into it. Like Judge was coming back. It's like you started to see the pieces come together, and you could see the Yankees go either way at the time.
yeah.
And I think people sort of thought, like, given the history and stuff like that, and a strong second half run was certainly possible.
Dog, you did have Toronto getting past the Yankees, who have too many injuries. So that was really sage of you to kind of notice that, because what I was talking about at that time was how the previous season the Yankees had, a lot of injuries and stuff, but they made it through with smoke and mirrors. And I thought, well, if they did it once, they'll just do it again. But so you were more right again on that one, I would say. So I think in the AL East, both of us acquitted ourselves very well.
Yeah. I think our analysis was good. We didn't necessarily get the right order, but we had to, and actually just even looking here, like run differentials overall, right? Yankees minus 18 lowest, so it's Baltimore, and Tampa Bay, and Toronto well ahead. Yankees just minus 18, which can put you right there. And even Boston's only minus 9 with the 76 wins. So all sort of laying out that we're around sort of 500 teams. And then they had to play each other, so that knocks down a little bit.
Yeah, but not as much as previously, right?
True.
Which I think you also noted. I don't know if you noted that for
yeah, we were saying that we sort of thought both the East would be rocking this year because they would get to play everyone else, and
yeah,
sort of, I don't know.
Sort of.
I did sort of see somehow like the Mets like played like 20 more games against like over 500 teams than the Marlins somehow. I'm like, how I have to go pull a schedule. Like, how is it possible? They're in the same division. So I don't know. I guess playing the Mets.
So we'll zip through the other divisions here. AL Central talk. This was, by the way, we put the link
don't care.
to the YouTube version of this episode in the write up of the episode.
We
the episode
almost
notes.
drilled this one. We just had the wrong name. Actually,
Yeah.
you kind of had yeah, you had the Twinkies come along though, so you did better in this one than I did.
Yeah, but so yeah, we have the link in there if you want to go back and just really scrutinize everything we said. I don't go back and listen to older shows very often. I usually just re-listen to the episodes that we've done right after to make sure there's nothing completely screwed up in there, and also for my own entertainment and edification. But this one was really enjoyable to go back and listen to. I actually sped it up a little bit, just to get, which is a Jerry Milani move. He listens to us at double speed, which you could do, but it's not as much fun. But we don't really care how you listen to us. Just do it. Dog goes.
It's a long one though.
Yeah.
1.25 might be your friend.
Yeah, or 1.5, 1.75, or 2.
Whatever you take.
Dog's like, you know what? I just I could not care less about this. I hate this division. I couldn't care less about it. You did predict one team over 500. It's just that you said it's Cleveland and everybody else.
Yeah.
I
almost got the red total. I almost got the win total right too. It was
I know
586, kind of same as last year.
Yeah, I said 86 wins. Twins or Guardians, pick one. One will get 86, one will get 85. They'll just duke it out for the whole year. I did have the Twins as a jump candidate.
Yep.
So that's the good, right? Yep. The bad was I predicted the Tigers to lose 100. They're going to finish in second place ahead of the Guardians. And I thought the Royals maybe were a jump candidate. It turns out that Bobby Witt Jr. was a jump candidate, and he's helped me be in contention for my fantasy league title, but not enough to help his team do anything but be the first. They were the second to 100 losses. They'll finish second to last in the whole majors behind, or in front of only the A's. So, yeah. So that was like Dog, you said the good, the bad, and the ugly. That was like the good, the bad, and the ugly right within the scope of one division, the AL Central. And NL Central. Dog, I love the Cards.
That might have been worse than the Met pick, actually.
Yeah.
In retrospect.
Yeah, that does that one does
that didn't age well.
But we did have some good stuff in here. Riz, I like the way the Cubs put together their team.
Yeah, you drilled
that. Well,
and why they were good too, it's also important.
Yeah,
Why, and it wasn't just the pick; it's the analysis on it.
I did have the Reds and the Pirates being a little bit better and closing the pack a little bit, that they'd be 70-something win teams this year, which they both are, although the Reds have exceeded that. They're still alive technically for the playoffs, although they'll probably come up a little bit short, and the Cubs might come up a little bit short too. But still to be determined as of the time that we're doing the show, which is September 29th, Friday at 9:03. PM. So we don't have the results of any of these games that may or may not have eliminated those teams at this point. We didn't really mention the Brewers, like either of us, but except for the fact that I thought the Cubs would edge them for second. So I wasn't as strong on the Cardinals. I did predict some Cardinal regression. I just didn't predict them to regress nearly as far as they did.
And you had the Cubbies kind of challenging with them on it. And frankly, plus 97 run differential, they should have had 89 wins. They only got 82. So you were like right there with the Cubbies. That's what they should have achieved. I think we were both kind of burned by like the Brewers year before. I think we both picked the Brewers and they kind of like spit the bit. So I don't know. That kind of carried through with me.
Yeah,
a little bit with the Twinkies the year before too. I think we were kind of high on. But now they finally put it together.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think you're right about that. We were definitely a little bit shy on the Brewers. We probably should have paid more attention to them. Well, especially since they've been one of the teams that we've talked about a lot on the show, the non-Yankee, non-Met. Like we've talked a lot about the Brewers because it really is impressive what they've done. And we'll get to a little bit more about David Stearns later in the show. NL West. This was I think this is my crowning achievement, Dog.
Yeah.
Both of us went, Dog's words were Dodgers are still king, I believe. I said Padres have all their all the shortstops. It's going to take them a long time to adjust in year one, and that once they figure it out, they're going to be like a house of fire. It's just the problem was they didn't figure it out until there was like 2 weeks left in the season. So the 99 wins that I predicted would get them to second place did not materialize. Although talk about the run
Eight
differential.
and 2 in the last 10 though.
I know. Talk about, well, and it's over the last 20, they're like 16-4 or something, but it's just, they ran out of rope. I think actually, as we speak now, technically, believe it or not, they are still alive.
Yeah, they're like 3.5. Yeah, 3.5 back on the wild
They
card.
need
Looks like.
all,
Yeah.
they need all
They're gonna
losses
lose. They gotta win.
and they have to win all, but they're still technically alive as we speak. So that's kind of, that's not too bad, but yeah, predicting 99 wins. But look at their run differential and their expected wins.
Yep, plus 97. They should be there. 90.
Yeah, they should be a 90 win team if they were hitting, you know, based on their run differential. Okay, but this was it. This is what makes the whole episode worth it. Diamondbacks will come out of nowhere.
And you got the reason why, which again is the key.
Yeah,
you can always get lucky on a pick, right? But you nailed why.
Yeah. So what I said was the first year of the new rules, they have all this speed. They put the ball in play. They have some pitching. And if they get off to the fast start, they could be a team that could just freak. That was the exact quote. And they did. Like, they were in front in the division for long enough that, you know, they were just stacked at the top. They didn't have depth. And, you know, the thing that I was saying is if they could survive long enough and then decide at the trade deadline to fortify and fill a few gaps, like, they might still run out of gas, but they might be able to make it over the finish line. And like the Tommy Pham trade has been exactly that. Like, he's just helped them not fall off. Like, they haven't been as good as they were in the beginning of the season, like when Corbin Carroll was going completely, you know, bonkers. But they've been just good enough, and the pitching's been good, and the bullpen hasn't let them down. So the fact that they're there, you know, I did call them for 89 wins. They're not going to get there, but they're going to be really, really close. And I think their over under was like in the mid or low 70s or something like that.
Yep.
So
I think we did the great defense too, if you remember right.
We did that for the Cubs. That's definitely for the Cubs.
Yeah, I think I thought you mentioned. I know we talked about in the strat preview.
Yeah, we did. That was a lot. That was a lot for the Cubs. For the Cubs, we talked about how, you know, they have Dansby Swanson, they have Nico Horner, who was their shortstop, who was like a Gold Glove defensive level shortstop, and like now he was moving to second base because they have like the one guy who was like probably even a better fielder at shortstop, who is unbelievable, Dansby Swanson. And Cody Bellinger, I'm like, even if he doesn't hit, he's still like a top 5 or maybe a top 3 defensive center fielder. And being that strong up the middle, I'm like, if Bellinger hits anything, it's a huge bonus. And probably that's been the difference, right? The fact that he's hit like almost like his MVP self. I mean, the fact that, you know, a guy with the swing and miss rate at his level to hit like 310 is just, it's like unbelievable, right? I mean, he becomes a great player. But for the Diamondbacks, I was talking about the first year of the new rules, team speed, like pretty much 1 through 9, put balls in play, make defenses make plays, use your speed to put pressure on the defense. And the other thing I talked about how Harold Reynolds was at the time talking about Maury Wills, who actually our buddy Jeff Fry just mentioned Maury Wills earlier today on Twitter, and how Maury Wills was saying, when you have the threat of a guy being able to steal second base and the count goes to like 3-2, like, you're going to get a fastball because they don't want to throw, like when they don't want to throw over, they're going to give you a fastball because they don't want to just give up that base. And what do young teams like to see more than anything else? Fastballs. Like, every team likes to see fastballs more than anything else. So their team speed, if they did things the right way, was probably going to translate into more fastballs. And if they get more fastballs, they could probably create a little more timely hitting. And that's like what happened. I mean,
Yep.
I didn't expect that it was going to go this well, but that was a pretty good one, dog. That was the crowning achievement probably of that episode, right?
That was a goodie. That was a goodie. You drilled it. Absolutely drilled it.
Yeah, I think you called a little bit about the Giants not really having enough to get back in there. I don't think you were as high. You were not as high on the Padres as I was. You definitely had the Dodgers as being kings. We talked about
Yeah.
how the Dodgers, like, even if they regressed by 20 wins, which would have put them from 111 to 91, they probably would still make the playoffs. But neither of us thought they'd actually lose the division. And I think we're probably going to get the Dodgers. I think we both figured them for being just over 100 wins. And I think they'll probably get there, as this weekend they play the Giants, and the Giants just fired Gabe Kapler. So who knows what's going to happen, because it's the Giants and the Dodgers. But the Dodgers are already locked into the second seed, so they really have nothing to play for. But they still like to beat the Giants, like, no matter what.
Exactly.
AL West, to wrap this part up. I had the nearly exact regression of the Astros to put them in the mid 80s in wins, but still right there in playoff contention. Dog, I would say this one was your crowning achievement of the episode. You looked at the Rangers' run differential from 2022. You cited the areas where they made improvement, and you had them being a big jump candidate, and you absolutely nailed the Rangers.
Yeah, they were, and the finding one of the factors I called out, I will say, picking up DeGrom obviously wound up not working out for him with him getting hurt. But yeah, they still were able to put together enough, and obviously fortify a little bit at the deadline as well. But yeah, they were a team we've talked about for years. That were kind of continuing to add, coming along. Kept saying, again, like sort of jamming guys up the middle, like where are they all going? And yeah, they finally started to click with those guys, and the offense exploded, and the pitching held up for them as well, and the run differential opened up even more. So huge plus 169 for the run differential.
That was a great job, dog, on that one. And we also both had the Mariners either being, I think we really had the Mariners probably winning the division and making a little bit of a jump, but at worst being in playoff contention with the Astros and the Rangers. We both were high on the Angels, but I don't think that, I think I maybe put the Angels into second, but of course, with everything that happened, listen, you couldn't predict all the injuries that they were going to have, especially the ones to Ohtani, which are the hardest ones. Maybe we could have been a little bit more wise and said, Rendon's not going to play. Like maybe I thought their pitching would come around a little bit more. And actually, it's hidden because some of it has. Just not quite enough. And then when you take Ohtani out of the mix, forget it. And you have Trout not being there. It was a little tough. So we were definitely off on the Angels, especially me. But I think the other stuff where we had the Rangers in the mix and the Astros regressing, a lot of it we talked about too was Jose Altuve missed the first few months of the season with the hand injury, the broken hand from the World Baseball Classic. And that sort of did slow the Astros at the start. And some of their pitching did fall off a little bit too, which I don't know if we talked about it in that episode or if we talked about it in the over-unders episode that we did, but we kind of had a couple of those factors there, but also figured they're the Astros. They have enough guys there that are used to winning. They'll probably figure out a way to just either be there till the last day and, probably make it into the playoffs somehow, some way. Doug, a quick break to tell everybody about Gatto Acupuncture and Wellness in Franklin Lakes, New Jersey. Now, brand new office over there for Dr. Melissa. Book online at gattoacu.com or call 551-212-3845. We'll talk a little bit maybe about like some people relocating in the off season here in a moment. And of course, they're going to want to go and check out Mascolo Group Realtors serving Northern and Pascack Valleys in North Jersey. Go to GaryMascolo.com or call 201-615-3665. We know that if Shohei Ohtani signs with the Yankees or the Mets and he's looking for a nice new residence in North Jersey, a big fan of the show, we're Shohei Ohtani. Mascolo Group is the unofficial realtor of Shohei Ohtani. We'll just mention.
Not yet signed.
Not yet. Yeah.
Close. We're right there.
Not yet anything, but yeah. FMSgraphics.com is a family-owned, family-run business for over 50 years. Go to FMSgraphics.com for all of your printing and promotional needs. FMSgraphics.com. And of course, Dog, all this rain. Oh my goodness. Is it ever going to stop raining in the New York, New Jersey metro area? And when it does, go to Big Ed's Car Wash in Fair Lawn, 17-16 River Road, Fair Lawn, New Jersey. Clean and green, 118-foot tunnel. Tell Big Ed that Diamond Diehards sent you. And of course, we're going to give a little shout out to High Performance Foot and Ankle in Manasquan, New Jersey, www.hpfoot.com. If you're down the shore area and you have any kind of problems with the foot and ankle, if you want more information about that, you can go check out Dr. Stacy, who was on our last episode. So we'll give her a little shout out there for
talk a little baseball and hoops with her too.
Oh yeah, you can talk anything with her. She's tremendous, tremendous sports fan. All right, Dog. The wrap up rant. Or should we look at the chat a little bit? We got any
chat is going in fuego, by the way. While you're doing all that, I'll try to catch up on this stuff, but it is cooking. So what do we got
there?
We've got Chris Patrick coming in hot, looking at wholesale changes for the Yankees. He wants to get on the show too. He wants everyone gone for the Yankees, so that's to be popular with the crowd in here. Mike Sarah wants me to check out the schedule. The way I checked out the Jerry Milani's strat draft order. That's 100%, by the way. I need to go do that. Clearly was tilted. Let's see. Mike Sarah is yes, Boone should be gone like the Untouchables. What else we got here? PJ coming in as well, saying that if you don't put him at the debater from Monty trade was bad, the rest is rubbish. So first idea is a good start. Mr. Sarah is a full square fan of clearing out everybody in the Yanks organization. So front office.
And Fitz here it also mentions Lon Trost. I mean, the Lon Trost vitriol is in full form. Cashman and Lon Trost have to go as well as Boone. The old man would have never tolerated the Yanks being at the bottom of the barrel. Billy Martin as well, and Lou and Joe Torre as well would never have permitted it. Well,
the old man would have flipped out. That's for sure.
The thing is, it's how you build your roster, right? That's really what it comes down to. So the parts about Lon Trost and Brian Cashman are certainly like relevant to that, right? You definitely could point fingers at that, but
we'll see. I mean, we will say it. I mean, I think that the weakness has been the starters for the Yanks, and that's sort of one, I guess, kind of coming into the season that seemed to be. You kind of thought they would take that extra next step, and they kind of didn't. So, the bullpen was great for him. And kept him in it despite the injuries to Judge and so forth. But the starting pitching has continued to be the weakness for him, and it's kind of Cole and everybody else at this point. So that's still a need that the Yankees need to address.
You know what? I don't fully agree. Could the starting pitching have been better?
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
But I think the offense clearly and totally is the problem. Like, their bullpen did enough that if their offense played the way it did the previous season, or at least comparable, I mean, not like, of course, last year it was so Judge heavy, and not having Judge for 2 months in the middle of the season, I don't know, maybe that does make the difference between them making it and not. They're still not that far away from where they would need to be to get into the playoffs with everything that's happened and everything that's gone down. They haven't thrown in the towel. But it's offense. Has been the key. Like, when your bullpen's that good, you can go and you could win close games. And, in the games that you don't win, if you get blown out, who cares, right? Like, lose 10-3. It doesn't matter. Come back the next day and win 3-2. Or 4-3. They just weren't winning any of these 3-2 or 4-3 type games this season. They were losing them. They just didn't have enough offense. They couldn't, replace Judge when other guys needed to step up, like Stanton with Judge out. Like you can't fill that void. And then you have other things happening, like Aaron Hicks. If you had Aaron Hicks in left field putting up the numbers that he put up with Baltimore, which are not spectacular, but they're okay, like that might mean a few wins more. Like it was a black hole pretty much this season, left field. Even giving the kids a shot, nobody stepped up and did anything. Cabrera was terrible. I mean, he never provided any offense, and his defense wasn't even as great as you would have expected. Perea has come in and not really done too much. Florial comes up, finally, like the guy has great numbers at AAA, and they don't ever want to give him a shot. I mean, he's a switch hitting, pretty good defensive outfielder who walks a lot. He's kind of like a younger, better version of Hicks, but they don't even want to give him a shot until like literally they have like nobody else, and they put Harrison Bader on waivers to save what $800,000-900,000 by the end of the season, when they actually, like, as an organization, from a GM standpoint, that's when you're throwing in the towel, right? Even if the players didn't quit on the field. So the other revelation that
I will say, just to back you up on that, Riz. So runs against for the Yankees 679 versus, say, Baltimore 667. So only 12 more runs given up. Baltimore runs scored 801. Yanks 661. So 140 back. So Riz just drill it.
That's a run a game. That's
Huge.
a run per game.
Huge.
Right? I mean,
Huge.
not exactly, but almost.
By far the worst. I mean, 100 behind the Red Sox, and 60 back at Toronto, and
what's worse, Dog, is that
Tampa Bay.
what's worse is when you look at 2022, the Yankees and the Dodgers, I think, were the only major league teams that exceeded 800 runs scored for the season. This year, there's like 8 teams that have done it.
Yeah. It's crazy.
So, and the Braves are like, the Dodgers looked amazing last year. They scored almost 900 runs. The Braves have like 975. It's ridiculous. It's insane.
Yeah.
So, and they've let up more than the Yankees, believe it or not. The Braves have.
And to throw it back at Mikey here. Yanks are 81 wins. Run differential 78. So Boone got you 3 more wins. How's that, Mike Sarah?
So the revelation is that I guess nobody really knew this, but I feel like I've known this, that they have like the analytics guy on the bench. Like there's analytics guys that are like in the dugout. Is that
verified?
I don't know. Like, but I kind of just always thought that they're at least in the clubhouse or around, and it's part of this whole,
big of a deal though. I don't know.
Yeah, it is. I'll tell you why it is. Mike Sarah is gonna hate this, but it's not so much a defense of Boone, but it's a defense of it's in offense to the idea of having analytics people having too much involvement. So I'll say this. I think if you just let Aaron Boone, who's a 3rd generation major leaguer, of which how many of them are there even? Like him and his brother? Like, are there any other 3rd generation major leaguers ever?
Guessing in Alomar. So
are there no? Well, did Sandy?
I'm about to say, is Sandy Stadmick? I don't know.
Maybe he might have been.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm like,
he might have been in Negro leagues, actually. Come to think of it, I don't know. So which we count, but there's like literally,
a handful at most.
Like more men have walked on the moon than there are 3rd generation major leaguers, right? So he's a 3rd generation major leaguer. His grandfather was a very good player. His father was a very good player. His brother was a great player. And he himself was a good, gritty player, like the kind of player that you'd always want on your team. And he's a likable guy that his players absolutely love. So my sense is that if you just let him manage the team, like the way that he would want to manage it, and put some more gut instinct into it. That's why I said he's the 3rd generation. He's the Eric Trump of baseball managers.
Oh, Mike just killed it.
That's all the time we have tonight.
That might be the line of the show right there. The Eric
Mic drop.
Baseball managers.
I don't know. That's pretty good. It's pretty
How's
good.
your analytics now?
That's why, like, see, if you are not, like, if you're just listening to this and you're not on the Facebook live stream, at least go back and watch it on the Facebook live stream if you're just listening to it, just because so you can see all these comments. The comments are unbelievable. Like
Oh, on
they're
fire tonight.
the comments are
We've
like,
had a couple of good ones the last couple of shows.
yeah, the
We've really
comments
been
are
on.
like half the show for the live stream. A Friday Night Live.
Right.
Quick hits.
So yeah, that's I mean,
But listen,
I
I don't think a guy like Boone has no clue how to run a team. Like he knows what he's doing.
yeah. See,
So
where I think it sort of depends on like who's the final decision maker. Like to me, and again, maybe I'm used to like being on the trading desk and so forth. I'm an analyst on the trading desk, and then we interact with portfolio managers and traders who actually execute trades and stuff. So not too dissimilar, frankly. Like the PM is basically like the manager, going out and getting stuff done, and maybe the trader's a pitching coach or something, right? So we may come up with an idea, and they may do it or they may not, right? But they're the ultimate decision maker. If you have that same sort of model, now again, this guy should be sitting on the bench. No, he's probably should be in the clubhouse, whatever. Like, but if you're providing information to a guy, that to me is just that's just another tool that kind of comes into it. The problem is if the analytics guy says, well, this guy is better than this, so you have to do this. And Boone says, okay, I'll tell him. That's a problem. I do concur on that. But, I think there's kind of too much of a flip out on it of, oh, they're getting analytical information into it. I'm like, more information is better, right? I mean, that's just sort of any organization. The more information sources you get, you should be better. Now, the question is, what do you do with it? And that's where, maybe they have an organizational issue. If they don't have a manager who's got enough heft to say, that's nice, however, I'm going to go with this guy, then that's your organizational problem, right? You should always have that human element at the end to make that decision, because the spreadsheets are going to tell you tendencies and whatever. They're not going to, they're not facts, right? They're past performances don't guarantee future results, and baseball is, king of that. So, so the question for the Yankees is who's making that call? Is it the spreadsheet or is it Aaron Boone? Or let's just say the manager, take the names out of it, right? Is the manager making the decision, or is the analytics based on backward-looking data making the decision?
well, that's right there's the rub, right? Yeah. If you let him manage the way the Astros let Dusty Baker manage, I sense they would probably, I don't know if they'd do better, but I think people would be less pointing the finger at him when in my opinion, I don't know how good of a manager he is or he isn't. I just suspect that because of his pedigree, he probably would be pretty good at it, and that he's in a system that is fatally flawed, because any person who would be in his position would be forced to do the same thing. Otherwise, he would just, if he didn't capitulate, he wouldn't have a job. Yeah. So I think it really goes to Cashman. It goes to whoever is in this advisory, board. Like, analytics are nice. Like, you can win to some degree with that, but if you're using that as the be all and end all, and like Mike Serra says about the offense, it's a big problem, particularly when exit velocity and launch angles are valued more than batting average. We talk about that here ad infinitum. That's Shigon, right? That's Shigon Nation. Like, it makes it too easy to get guys out in a big spot. Any decent enough pitcher could find the flaw in that swing. And, okay, a guy gets you 1 out of 20 times for like a home run, big deal. You got him out 18 other times, and the other time he hit a flare to right. And it was in the 3rd inning when nobody else was on. So Mike says, how can he, whoa, sorry.
I mean, I will say, like, before the season, I can remember we were talking Boone before I jumped on the Sarah bandwagon of bashing Boone for fun. I look at Boone, he's kind of like if he had a manager war, he's a zero, right? I don't think he costs you games, really. Does he win you games? I don't know about that either. Like the run differential versus the runs, pretty much exactly there, right? So they should be a 78 win team, they're an 81 win team. So, maybe it's done scrappily better.
Maybe,
based upon that.
but the
So
system's flawed. So if you're,
Yeah.
I am getting the Cashman and analytics people out of there before I'm getting Boone out of there is probably my point. I think if you're trying to levy blame, that yeah, fire Boone is just, okay. So we're just going to replace him with another guy who ends up doing the same thing, and he might go somewhere else and manage another team where it's not that way, and you'll be like, wow, this guy's great. Like, how did we not like this guy? He was winning. He has at least a winning record every year, even the year that, you didn't give him some talent. So that's really the genesis. It sounds like a defensive Boone, but it's more like, if we're looking at where the problem really is, you need baseball people in there. You need people that have played the game and that have lived the game and that have been close to it. And you take some of the risk of saying, okay, this guy passes the test on paper, but he doesn't pass the eye test, or this guy doesn't always pass the test on paper, but there's something about him. There's something about the eye test. Like this guy is just going to help me be a winning player. Like you can't quantify that on paper. The other thing is, just because a spreadsheet tells you that this is almost like what they're talking about this in football a lot with the Chargers coach, Staley, where they're winning by 4. They're on their own like 21-yard line. There's like 4 minutes left in the game, and it's 4th down and 1. And the analytics chart says you have an 89% chance to win if you go for it, and you have an 82% chance to win if you punt. And what it's not taking into account is that those situations and those players and that time of game, like none of that stuff is made equally. Like that's like an average of everything. Like you have to take some common sense here and say, we don't fucking like go for it now. Like we punt.
My defense is okay, right? So yeah.
No, I mean, it's ridiculous. Like
Yeah.
but these are like the people that are getting paid millions of dollars that are in these top decision-making positions. And it has penetrated all the way to there to make people who are making the decisions think that for a moment that could be a right decision. And
Riz, you know what the best spreadsheet guys on the planet were doing in 2008? Selling CDOs. Watch The Big Short. See how that turned out. Oh baby. all those women said they were all fine too.
Yeah.
The interesting thing would be is like maybe dialing it back to, right? We I think identified that maybe just the talent wasn't where it needed to be, and the depth wasn't where it needed to be. So maybe that's still like being sort of the bigger indictment for the Yanks, from the offensive perspective, and I would think from the starter side, but you could say, all right, maybe it's more the offense. The question is, who's making that decision? How are they making that decision? Now, is that all analytical based? Is that taking any impact from Boone and the coaches and so forth, and saying these are guys we see them developing, et cetera, or is that kind of all getting ginned up together analytically, and then they come out and picked players that were inferior and didn't go out and achieve what they should have achieved? I mean, that's what they really have to do, a root cause analysis on. And then from then, again, I think like the intra-game thing, again, maybe that's your 5 or 6 wins a year that you kind of sort of find a way that maybe the analytics guru is a hot one, and he always puts the best guy up against the optimal pitcher, or the old school manager finds a way to kind of get it done. But the real bigger rub is really going to be how are you doing your selection of players and development players, and whatever's been going on with that. The Yankees just haven't lived up to their historical past. Especially the depth of that. I mean, their system. When the Yankees had a really good. Everyone thought that the Yankees had a great farm system, and it it hasn't seemed to kind of come through from the last, certainly this last year.
Well, they have some good guys in place at least now. Wells, Volpe, and of course the Martian. Right? I mean, that was a flash. He was like a comet going through the sky. But I'll kill the look. You and I knew about Saber like in the 80s when like nobody knew what it was, right? Not that we were, and we were on board to a large degree. So we're guys that really like analytics. We like numbers. We like digging into baseball to get us, to these numbers and things that will give us a little bit better insight. But I'm going to kill analytics. So I like analytics. I think they're important to a large degree, but there's also ways that when they're misused, I'm going to kill it with one piece, right? Analytics have taught us that one knee catching is good. One knee catching, I cannot even believe that I watch this on a nightly basis at the major league level. Why do you catch on one knee? The reason why they taught catchers to catch on one knee is because it gives you a better advantage in framing pitches. Okay. So for the slight advantages that you may or may not have, which is a very subjective thing because each umpire has a different strike zone, right? So sometimes it's going to matter more and sometimes it's not going to matter.
Basically just stealing the low strike, right? It doesn't matter
Right.
for the other three dimensions. It's only stealing the low strike.
Yeah, pretty much. Maybe a little bit more. Maybe a little bit more. Maybe on the corners that are on the low side too.
Okay.
Either way, what you're giving up, like, is that's
particular
not,
guys on third. It's just mind-boggling.
Right. It's not quantifiable. I mean, there's certain ways that you could quantify it. You could actually probably look up numbers of one knee catchers that have allowed runs on balls that like probably would have been easily blocked if they were not on a knee. Like you could probably do that. But the other part that they're not doing is like, do you know how much that shatters the confidence of a defense behind you when you just give away a run like that? Like, or you give away a base, like guys are busting their ass to cut balls off in the alley. They're like, the scouting reports for playing defense are really good, right? Like you see so many guys that barely even have to move to make a play. And then like, because we're trying to steal a strike, like is it more important to steal this strike or to just let a guy walk home from third because there was a ball that bounced at 57 feet and like he should have been easily able to block it, but now he can't. Like it doesn't make sense. Like
or if you're a pitcher, do you crank up your 98-mile-an-hour slider?
Well, that's the other thing.
One knee, right? I mean,
they do.
It's like
they do though. That's the problem.
But then you get more fastballs on, right? So that's right. Like if I might be able to slightly steal a strike, but if I'm now sitting there, a guy on third, I'm like, if I sit there and crank a curveball, right? I snap off an awesome slider. Am I going to get the swing and miss, and the guy's going to go to first base, and the guy's going to come home to score, and I threw the perfect pitch.
There's not enough talk and analysis, right, of the ripple effects, the interaction effects and the ripple effects. There's just that is the fatal flaw of analytics in 2023. They don't look at how it affects the game from a baseball player playing the game standpoint. They don't. Just like uppercut. Oh, I see the clapping emoji.
Hey,
great job, by Doggy.
Working on it.
It's just they because they don't care. I mean, that's what it's like. It's like, what are you doing? Like, it doesn't, like what you're doing doesn't make sense. And the uppercut stuff and the launch angle stuff, like, okay, that's great. Like if you're kind of in the right pitching matchup, right? Where, a guy's going to throw stuff that's coming down and, you might just hit a ground ball. Otherwise,
I'm still cracking up with the Eric Trump line, by the way.
I know that is. That's like an all-time classic.
I can't get past it.
It's like an all-time classic.
Might just end it, Riz.
There's times when a launch angle is okay. Like that time is like not when there's a guy on base, except if maybe he's on third and the guy's not really much of a contact hitter anyway. But like the other stuff just doesn't make sense. And it penetrates like all the way through. And now these kids, like, they don't know how to play baseball, a lot of them. And the ones that do know how to play baseball come in and they're like stars right off the bat because they look like they know stuff that the other guys don't, and they're doing bit. Luis Ariz, right? I don't think we said it in that show, but I said in one of the shows before the season, I'm like, with these new rules, I'm like, that guy's going to hit 350. And what's he hitting now? Like 353? Like I said, that guy's going to hit 350 with these rules. And he is. And if these guys were smart and the general managers are smart, they'd be looking for more guys like him, contact hitters. These guys are going to, if you load up on these guys, you don't have to have all of them, but have like 4 or 5 in your lineup. Reduce your strikeouts, put balls in play, make teams field 24 balls a game instead of 17.
And we talked about the increase in stealing and so forth, right? Guess what you don't do as well when you're on one knee? Throw the ball to second.
Yeah.
You just give up 4 inches and now you're going to go on one knee and now you're going to throw the guy who can haul on first base. You're going to try and throw him out second? I don't think so.
Yeah. And maybe
Unless
you've
you're
already used, you've already,
you could.
you've already used your 2 throws to first, right?
Oh, I
Which
hate
we
that.
talked
I
about
hate
the
that rule.
Diamondback
I
thing.
I hate that rule.
Yeah.
That's of all the new rules, I hate that one, I think, the most. That maybe the ghost runner. I don't know. Sorry.
So there's a lot of things. All right. How much overtime are we, dog? We didn't even do the Met
that
rant.
might be a little bit on me right there.
Yeah, I know. For
I
once,
won't blame you on the quick hit this time.
for once, it's on you. Mike
just talking about
Mike Sarah dominating the comments tonight. Riz is
Yeah,
basically saying they need a new stick Michael. Yeah, that
That'd
is
be
what
nice.
they need. That is what they need.
He's loving our analysis of the game right now.
Dog and I could do it. Well, Mike, we'll have Mike in there too.
There you go.
We'll
Jerry doing PR.
We'll hire Brett Boone to be manager.
Boomer can be the owner.
We'll hire Brett.
Cab's the finance guy.
We'll hire Brett Boone to be manager, aka Donald Trump Jr. The third generation. Oh baby, we're rolling tonight on a Friday Night Live. All right, Met rant. All right, let's. So the Met rant. Actually, some of it was probably in that previous episode before this season. I mean, they said
demoralizing.
They put the money out there, and there's a lot of risk when the front of your rotation is 2 guys at, with a lot of mileage, both certain future Hall of Famers, first ballot Hall of Famers, both guys, but that's just a lot of risk when you have those guys at the front of your rotation. And like, I still don't know why they traded Verlander. Like, I get why they traded Scherzer. And then sort of to some degree, I kind of get why they traded Verlander, but I wouldn't have done that.
Get a lot of talent from him. That was the tough one. When we talked about at the show, right? The deadline show. I'm like, that was the toughie as a Met fan. That was a tough one. You're hoping they went and got a sufficient talent to make it a smart move in the long run. It looks so far, small sample size, looks like it's the right move. But yeah, that was the tough one. Kind of get by, no question. Especially as Verlander was getting better. That could you have been clawing your way to try and sneak your way in for at least over 500 or maybe a third wild card or something like that, maybe. Right. So that's what you were giving up. That versus I'm going to be a lot better in 25, 26, 27, 28 by selling now. Which
but I don't know. Like, what about 24? What about 24? Like, he would have been still at the front of your rotation for 24.
I agree. And
that's really what I mean.
Yeah, and that's fair. That's we talked about that.
And then if things were going right, if things were going south next year, okay, then it's obvious that you trade him because he's in the last year of the deal.
Yeah, I mean, you get less. Well, I don't know. Would you get less? I don't know if you get less.
I mean, it's possible.
You get less control, right? And the Mets are picking up a lot of salary too, right? So
well, you might get more because the team doesn't have to pay him for another year.
Yeah, the Mets are kind of throwing a bunch of dildo anyway.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So
I don't know, a tough call.
It is a toughie, and like I said, for a Met fan, it made it harder. Let's see what the off season brings, right? Right now, if you could say that you could be competitive No, you're probably not going. You're not going to be a division. You're not going to be a contender for the division next year. Or, most likely. Can you stitch together enough pieces to be competitive and pick up that extra 10 wins? Be a mid 80s winning team. Maybe things break your way. You get up to 90 and make a wild card. That's sort of like that should kind of be like your off year as the Mets, like kind of going forward.
Well, there's another side of it.
That's what
There-
you're. If
there's
you're a
another
successful
side of it to
organization,
me.
that's what you should be, right?
There's
Even
another
like
side of it.
like the Yankees, right? The Yankees in an off year are still 83, 84, a couple games out of a wild card. And like everything broke against them and so forth. It was a down year. It was just, fates were against them this year. And they're still a competitive team. That's kind of what the Mets minimum should be going forward.
The other side of it is when the Calvin Zieglers and their other pitching prospects are in camp, I want him like talking to Justin Verlander in the locker room or on a backfield. Like I want Justin Verlander taking a kid like that under his wing a little bit. I kind of would want Scherzer in some degree too, but but Scherzer was an easy one that you had to make that deal. That was a no-brainer. But
Yeah.
like I wanted Verlander around for another year for those purposes too.
Yeah.
And then he can add a lot. Like he teaches a kid like that about approach. And maybe that helps make you better in 2025, 26, 27, 28.
Maybe.
And then you know what? If it doesn't work out, then maybe you don't get as much on the return at the trade deadline. But like if you're back in it, as you might expect to be with the lineup that they have, then you're adding instead of subtracting.
Mhm.
So that's the reason why I would have done it.
I hear you. I mean, that's very legit. I mean, I think the rationale is spot on. It's just a question which you think is best in the long-term interest of the organization. But yeah, it was toughy. Tough day. Tough year. But looking forward. Just wait till the kids come back. It's like 1982 right now. We're getting there. Maybe 1983. So
I mean,
how about starting right out here? Do we start talking off season all or no? Or
well, I think what you got to look at is what are you doing with the front office? Now, David Stearns is there. David Stearns is there, right?
Been waiting 2 years for it, right? So they finally got this guy.
What does that mean for Buck Showalter?
Unknown. I would keep him.
Okay.
I don't think it's a Buck problem. Like maybe Buck had a little bit of regression back. I think just like the whole rest of the fucking team, like everything regressed back from what they traditionally I think could have been, should have been. The kid's kind of coming along. I think that's the interesting one. Is Buck Buck was sort of known as a good developer of young talent. The strike against Buck, and I don't know if that's Buck or if that's the front office, was they didn't want to play the kids until too late. Arguably, I don't know, Beatty went out and he kind of spit the bit a little bit. We'll see on that. Alvarez, had a good year, but average, kind of weak. But some of the other guys kind of coming along were solid, and people were fighting for it, and they were like, well, Buck's not going to play him, right? So if Buck is a good developer of young talent, and the Mets should have a bunch of young guys coming up the next year or two, then yeah, he's probably a guy to continue to kind of get back and going. The guy won manager of the year last year. I mean, do I really think he doesn't know how to manage now? No, I just think everyone hit 50 points below their average, right? And how much magic do you want the guy to work on that one? So I would bring him back, but Stearns coming in, likely picks a GM, be a friend of the show, that'd be nice, and and then they should be able to kind of get their pick on the manager and see who they're gonna be able to work with and do it. But I have no problem with Buck staying. I understand change of regime. I understand if he wants it going, and why you would do that organizationally. But I think I would keep him.
Well, I think you could. So this would be, from the world of outlandish, which we seem to do so well. Craig Counsell is finishing his contract in Milwaukee. There's talk that he's just not going to be back, but that might be because he's got kids that are in high school and he wants to spend more time. Maybe David Stearns is like, hey, why don't you
Hey.
come manage the Metsies here? Like, yeah, it's not going to be like Milwaukee. Like, we're not going to trade your closer, while we're contending for a playoff spot. In an age where closers are less and less reliable and you have Josh Hader, like, we're not going to trade, Edwin Diaz at the trade deadline because we're trying to save money. Like, that's not going to happen here. Like, we'll probably go get Josh Hader to be our setup guy instead. Like, that's more what you're going to deal with here, Craig Counsell. And, you're not going to have to play with guys at the bottom of the lineup because if we don't like the way Ronnie Mauricio is performing, we'll go out and get you some brand name guy. So I think that's a possibility, but it's a long shot. But I'll be surprised at this point. I don't know what Ray Montgomery's contract is, the bench coach for the Angels, but he worked for Stearns. He was basically his right-hand man in Milwaukee. He was basically the assistant to the GM, and he also has experience like running farm director and everything. And for the last couple of years, he's been the bench coach of the Angels. So he's a guy I can't imagine he's not getting a call unless he's got some kind of multi-year deal with to stay with the Angels. I like, he could be the manager. He could be Buck's bench coach. He could be the GM. He could be an assistant GM. Like, but he's a great baseball guy. You and I know how good he is, even if he's a name that most people haven't heard of. And I'm sure shortly after the season ends, he'll come on and maybe we'll sort of wait it out and see if he gets the job, and then be like, okay,
we don't want to torpedo him either.
yeah, we don't want to mess this up. But like,
about him.
but like, you add, guys like that. Those are the kinds of guys that David Stearns had in Milwaukee on the shoestring budget, and made it work. It's a totally different set of circumstances when you all of a sudden like have the money. I say it all the time, and I say it on this show, but I say it in our chats and everything. You could have as much of a budget as you want, but if you make bad financial decisions, it always comes back to haunt you. You can't be financially irresponsible and just keep signing guys to bad deals or whatever. Eventually, at some point, it comes back to bite you. And that's why it's important that even if the Mets are going to have the highest payroll in the league, they have to be judicious about the contracts that they're giving out, the players they bring in, the way they're constructing their roster. They have to be judicious about it. And the Yankees are a good example. The Red Sox have been a good example. In the years where the Red Sox have done less, they've resulted more. The Dodgers, like, they should be way more successful than they are, right? They're always in the stratosphere. They took the Red Sox out of hell a few years ago. I mean, now it's 10 years ago, 11 years ago. They took the Red Sox out of hell by taking on all their bad contracts. And that probably cost them, to be honest with you. Like, you can't just settle with bad contracts. And now we'll swing back to the Yankees on that note before we wrap it up. And this is Jeter's fault. Like, why? What? How is it Jeter's fault? Well, I'll tell you how it's Jeter's fault. He was GM of the Marlins, and when it came time that he was forced to trade Giancarlo Stanton, he sold him to the Yankees for pennies on the dollar. And it was essentially like, sensibly, if you had all your wits about you, you might say, okay, they're basically giving me this guy for free. Like, and in fact, they're taking away like a couple of guys that I just don't even need anyway to get them. And the contract was, as it's aging, it's not so bad. Like, he's not making, he's not a $40 million guy like the Mets pitchers. He's somewhere in the high 20s. And believe it or not, the Marlins did pick up a big chunk of that. So they're not even paying him that much. I mean, he does count against the luxury tax, but they're not paying him even as much as the contract is. The problem is, by taking him on, you've completely hamstrung everything that you could do, because of the emergence of Judge. You can't, as the Yankees, they become too right-handed, and that's been a huge flaw. Like, and the Astros have known how to exploit it every single postseason that they've run into them, and the other teams have as well. In big spots, you can exploit them. They need to vary their lineup, and Jeter was the one that, like, basically, sweethearted that deal for the Yankees. They need to get, I don't know if they can get out of the Stanton business, because he has that, full no trade. And I mean, essentially, like, maybe he'd go to the Dodgers. The Dodgers would have to want him. They already have JD Martinez. I mean, he was only on a 1-year deal, so we'll see if they could maybe move him there. Maybe they could get him to San Francisco, maybe. But other than that, like, he's probably would just reject a trade to the Angels, who could probably use him. But even so, you have to keep trudging on. And now the one place where you could actually use that money to overcome the mistake is, if I'm the Yankees. In fact, if I'm any team, I am writing the Ohtani check. If he wants $500 million for 10 years, I'm writing the check right now. I don't care if he doesn't pitch another game in the rest of his career.
Oh.
I am writing the check. I don't even care.
That's a statement of a guy torn UCL.
I don't care. He's still going to be able to hit. He's going to be able to hit from day one next season. He might not be able to play, the role of, a frontline starter. But the other thing we know about Ohtani is that he's finely, Finely, fine. He's fine. He could play a position. Like, he could be an outfielder tomorrow. Like, that would be. So if he wanted to come to the Yankees, I am signing him to that deal. You know why, dog? It's not about, is he going to be a $50 million a year hitter? I don't care. He's going to be he's going to be great. Just even if he's only as a hitter, he's going to be great. And dog, you're a financial guy. I am easily making up the $50 million a year off the field by having him on my team. His jerseys are going to be the top seller for probably as long as he's there or close. And now he's paired with Judge, right? Your team, once again, the Yankees have a great history with Japanese players, Matsui, Tanaka. Those guys were like fan favorites from day one, and neither of those guys were as good. They don't even approach the level of Ohtani, right? You're going to make back that money easily. Like, you're going to make it back in droves. You're going to make exponentially more than what you're laying out. Like, he's just worth more as an entity to your team than he is as a player. And you know what? As soon as he can throw a ball back to the infield, I'm like, hey, you want to be my left fielder this year? And then if he wants to pitch again in 2025, I'll let him pitch. And if he doesn't want to pitch, I'll say, okay, this is like you take the Babe Ruth track in your career. We always talk about Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth came to the Yankees and he didn't pitch anymore. And that's what you're going to do. You're going to go out, you're going to play in the outfield. You're going to DH here and there. You're going to hit a lot of home runs, and you're going to help us win games, and you're going to raise that trophy. And these fans are going to love you for the rest of your life. You could give him something there that other teams really can't give him. And we'll see what happens in that episode that we talked about.
You're going straight from bitching like crazy about the Giancarlo Stanton contract. The first thing you're gonna do is drop the $500 million on another big hitter.
He's not a baseball player. He's a unicorn. Like, he's
agreed. If he can pitch again,
he's way more.
Unicorn.
But he's so valuable to your franchise. Like, and he's a left-handed bat on top of it. And he's such a good athlete that he's not gonna drop off like significantly as a hitter. Even if he does, it's not going to be, he's still, even if as he drops off, he's still going to be amazingly productive. And if you're worried, then just hit him in front of Judge instead of behind Judge.
Yeah, it's a high risk, high reward. signing, I would say, particularly since he's injured, right? That I think definitely puts a wrinkle in it that didn't exist a couple months ago. What happens when they start booing him like crazy? It's New York.
They won't.
It's tough.
They won't.
They won't. They booed everybody. Let's be honest. It's New York. It's New York. Everybody gets booed.
Has Judge ever gotten booed? I don't know.
He's gotten booed. I'm sure he's gotten booed. It's New York, dude. We boo everybody. Guy hits a home run the first inning, strikes the next 3 times, he's getting booed.
Tanaka and Matsui ever get booed? I don't know. I don't feel
sure
like
they
it.
did. I'm sure they did.
I don't think so.
You couldn't. You know why you didn't hear it? Because you're busy booing.
No way. Oh my God, those 2 guys were like my
I'm just saying,
players.
versus like warm and sunny and everyone's friendly in LA or whatever. I'm like, yeah, that's it takes a different mental makeup, right?
I do admit,
can make that transition.
I do admit, I do have a strange affinity for the really good Japanese players. I loved Ichiro. I could still do the Ichiro like right now, I loved Matsui. And Tanaka, I always wanted him in a big game. So, now Arabu, like he wasn't at their level.
Yes, Matsui.
I mean, Matsui got a World Series MVP, baby.
Has hit a home run his first at bat.
Yeah.
I thought we had made. We moved Jose Reyes over for him.
So I think you do it. Like if I have literally zero hesitation. In a way, I almost don't even care if he pitches. I'll just take him to play left field. The other plan is, I've said also from the beginning, I think Soto, when he becomes a free agent, I think the only way he doesn't sign with the Yankees is if they bring in Ohtani, like, and they end up playing him in the outfield. But I think Ohtani could even play first base. Like he's already, like, he could field the position as a pitcher. So at first base, I'm sure he would be fine. I think in the outfield, he probably would be,
he'd be better
above average.
He'd be better used on the outfield.
But if he can't throw, then first base, you could put him there. And then, so if you have him at first base, you could put Soto in left. So you don't have to go out and try to fill those holes, but it wouldn't stop me. So now, if all these years of not going out and spending crazy money on guys, like I know Jerry Milani is going to want me to rant on Carlos Rodon. He was hurt, tough year. I think eventually he'll be better. But Mike Sarah says he doesn't see Hal spending another $500 million. But why not? They haven't spent it. Like, they haven't gone to the astronomical contract outside of the obvious one, which was Judge. Dog, we could go on all night about it. We have other shows that we could possibly do. At some point, we probably just need to wrap it up. But if you go back to that original episode that we were talking about, we did start it out with a whole chat about where we think Ohtani might end up. And at the time I said, and nobody had mentioned this up to that point, I think San Francisco would be a big front runner for a lot of reasons. They've been going after the big fish. They're trying to spend the money. They haven't been able to get anybody. He could switch leagues. He wouldn't have the Angel Dodger thing where the Angel fan would always hate him, but the Dodger fan would love him. He could go to San Francisco still, the Giants would check all the boxes for him, winning. They've been a winning franchise, whatever. We could go on all day. At some point, we got to wrap it up. That point is now. Follow the dog on Twitter at Jeff Healy 8. That's the number 8. And you can follow me, Joe Rizzo, at Diamond Diehards on Twitter. Well, Twitter X. Everybody still calls it Twitter. People are starting to call it X, whatever it is. Twitter, X, whatever it is. And on all social media, we're there. If you're just listening to this or you're watching it on YouTube, go to facebook.com/groups/Diamond Diehards, and then you can get in on this. In the early days, we did live stream to a bunch of platforms. We just pared it down a few years ago to Facebook when we live stream. But we might do that again at some point. Until then, we definitely recommend joining the Facebook group. And we also have a Facebook page if you run into that. So you could join that as well. Subscribe everywhere you get your podcasts, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, YouTube, and even here on Facebook. I think it's listed as a podcast or something. I don't know. You could just check it. You'll get updates. So hit the subscribe, and then when we go live, you'll know about it. And just wanted to thank everybody who chimed in on the comments. They were really, really strong tonight. Fitz, I know you're dying to be on here. We'll see. I'll try to run that past the dog if you can get the dog's approval. You got a shot. It's going to be tough though. It's going to be tough. We got to figure out. We're like, okay, so like we have Dr. Stacy on, right? Well, she's a surgeon, and she's talking about like Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Judge, and you know, we have Ray Montgomery on, and he's the bench coach of the Angels. Like, Fitz, what are you bringing to the table? I mean, what are you, you know?
Wow.
Besides that, you hate Lon.
Get right at it.
Besides that, you hate Lon. Well, he's Fitz. So you got to be. If Fitz likes anything, he likes honesty and transparency. I could tell you that from him being one of my roommates. So let's say. So Fitz, you got a lot of airtime here, just so you know. All right, dog. Any final comment there?
Wait till next year, and really the year after. Hopefully next year.
It already is next year. Scary part.
Right. Should be fun playoffs. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll do a playoff preview show. Hopefully, maybe early next week if we can. Life's been getting in the way a lot. Not gonna lie.
I hear that.
All right. That is going to do it. Another episode in the books. This was a good one. Mark it down. For the dog, Jeff Healy. This is Joe Rizzo. Diamond Diehards is out.